Let's talk about Revenge of the Sith, baby. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about Revenge of the Sith. So first, let me gush a little bit about my experience. And then we'll talk about the data, the stats, the accolades, because my God, this shit popped off. So as I said on Friday, man, I woke up just kind of feeling like I really wanted to go experience George Lucas Star Wars in the theater. At the time when I kind of came up with this, because it was like late Thursday night, and I had even told you guys, I was like back and forth on it, because I'm very negative on Star Wars. I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if you noticed, but I've been very negative on Star Wars, to the point that you guys would super chat me and ask me if I was going to see Revenge of the Sith, and I think I cheekily answered, I don't like Star Wars anymore, so no. That's the level to which I've been anti-Star Wars. Okay. But somehow, some way, Thursday night, I had memories of 20 years ago dressing up as a Jedi. I dressed up as a Sith. But my friend and I dressing up and going to see that movie when midnight showings actually happened at midnight on Thursday, and you paid the real price. And I had all this nostalgia kind of like swirl up in my memory, and I had this like just kind of smile and a lot of positive thoughts about it. And so I said, it just happened that we had the babysitter Friday. And so I kind of decided, me and the wife will slip away and go watch Revenge of the Sith. Now, as it happened, and I didn't know this, but I guess I should have, right? But she had never seen Star Wars in the theater. She had never seen any of the Star Wars movies, including the sequels, in the theater. She didn't really get into Star Wars until like after we had started dating and stuff, right? So I was like, that's cool. That's cool. And as we did the whole stream on Friday, and I spoke about how I felt like it was going to be a big hit. I spoke about how I thought it would be a referendum on Disney Star Wars. People would be motivated. George's stuff still pops, all of that, right? So we get there. We go to see this movie, and like man, it's just like hard to explain how good of a time I had. And man, was that needed, because frankly, like, I haven't had a really great time in the theaters for a while. I've been pretty critical of a lot of the Marvel stuff, including Deadpool and Wolverine. Just to be honest with you, when I first saw it, I didn't have that fucking joy that a lot of you guys had when you watched Deadpool and Wolverine. I found that the second time, I kind of let some shit go. But maybe Spider-Man and Multiverse of Madness, Guardians 3, like those were fun. But a lot of disappointment in the theaters recently. And wow, what a good time, man. I think the thing about Revenge of the Sith, because it hit me so hard, and I truly think the thing's a masterpiece. People have all sorts of, I think it's operatic in a way. It's like the perfect blend of this like operatic, super emotional, high stakes, tormented soul journey. It's a tragedy. You know what I mean? And like, brother, that shit just still hits. Like, it was incredible. The theater was actually had a good amount of people, as you saw with the data when the box office, came out. A lot of people went out. People were saying the lines. People were cheering for little moments. People loved that movie. It was an incredible experience. There were a couple of things as I was actually watching it that, like, I was like, damn, I get the theater thing. Because we also live at a time where I think a lot of folks are questioning the theater experience. The CEO of Netflix recently came out, made some comments about how people just prefer shit at home. And I don't think you can really argue with the convenience of home, the improvements in TVs, sound systems at home. It's like really good experience. And there is a sort of hassle that comes with scheduling and travel to go to a movie in the theaters. So we live at this really interesting time where we're kind of reinvestigating some of these value propositions. And for me, Revenge of the Sith was like a solid, like, put that in the category of like keep theaters around. Part of it's the sound. That opera soundtrack was so cool in the actual theater with the proper acoustics and the really high quality sound. There were a couple of moments. I've seen this movie like fucking 100 times, maybe. You know, like I don't even know how many times I've watched Revenge of the Sith. It's a go-to. And there were moments of little flutters, little chimes, little cymbal hits that I just don't remember from my home theater experience. So there were like some little moments that like really hit. And then I think the biggest, most impactful, there were two moments where I was like, holy shit, Star Wars on the big screen hits. The opening, the scale of that fight as they're flying through before any dialogue is revealed, or you know what I mean? Like when they're just flying through the space battle at the beginning, you're just like, you get a sense of the scope, and it just hits different when it's like 30 fucking feet in front of you and you're like coming around the ships and everything. But also the fight on Mustafar. Guys, the fight on Mustafar, get the fuck out of here. This shit is brilliant. Some of the shots where, you know, some of the big objects like slam into the molten and it like flies around and you have all these particle effects in the lava. Brother, it just hits different on the big screen. Like you get a sense of that scope and that scale. I think there were other elements that, like, just as a fan of the movies, but also the performers, there's moments like, for me, the Palpatine Mace Windu fight is so iconic, and there's this really iconic moment where they're circling each other, almost haunched over like two animals. And dude, acting is such a cool thing where you get like a really like crazy performance and one actor can like tap into something, because like that scene to me is so crazy. And then when you really like hit it on the big screen, it's just like this fucking iconic moment where Mace is like circling and Palpatine circling. And you can just feel that like those two human beings tapped into something primal in that moment, and their body language and the way their body language mirrored each other as they're circling, it's just it evokes something, you know. And I was like, damn, like, so there was just several things about the theatrical experience of Revenge of the Sith that really hit. I was buzzing when I got out of there, like truly buzzing. And then, you know, the other thing I'll say is I think like You talk about like the some of the sequel movies or Infinity War and Endgame with Marvel, and one of the reasons that those experiences were so good is because it felt like a truly communal thing, like we were all a part of something. Like when we were watching Endgame, like it just felt like we were all a part of something, and we could all like, I mean, I don't know how much you guys remember this shit, but like we'd go see the movie, be at the bar afterwards or something, and like a whole bunch of people that saw the movie wanted to ask about it. People that hadn't seen the movie were like, tell me about it, but don't spoil it. You know, like this, everywhere you went, like you're checking out at like Target and you have the Marvel shirt on or whatever, and people are like, Endgame, you know what I mean? Like it was truly good. And Communal. Revenge of the Sith kind of felt like that. And I had this moment because I think it was like Saturday when or maybe it was Friday night, because the tracking for the thing was like, people were shocked, like 5.3 million in previews. I don't remember what it did on Friday, but it did big business on Friday. And people were like, whoa, like this thing's like me. I had a moment where I like went, you know, to Elisa and I said, hey, we were just a part of history. It's the biggest re-release in modern times. Like this is, and that felt cool. So the whole thing felt cool, man. It was like, frankly, the complete and total fucking opposite of a lot of the experiences I've had as a Star Wars fan over the past 5 years. This was truly something special. And so I really feel that way. And I think a big part of why the movie performed the way that it did is because that word of mouth was real. Like, people went out, and instead of just being like, did you see the new Marvel movie? Or like, are you going to see this movie? It was different. It was more like, dude, Revenge of the Sith in theaters was like different. And I think you should go have that experience. Like, strong word of mouth. That's what I saw in our communities. That's what I saw on Twitter and social media and stuff. And that shit's cool. And again, very different than what you've been getting with Star Wars. So what's the numbers? What's the data, man? Let's dig into it a little bit here. Let's talk about this. So, record breaking. Disney's Revenge of the Sith re-release earned $25.2 million domestically The film collected another 17 million internationally for a galactic 42 million tally over the weekend. Now, of course, Sinners made history. 6% drop weekend one into weekend two, almost unheard of. Massive success, the hit that Sinners is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we're the den of nerds, you know what I mean? But obviously, flowers to Ryan and all of them. There's only 2 paragraphs in this whole goddamn article that talk about Revenge of the Sith, so we're going to read them. After a close race, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, looks to have pulled ahead of Ben Affleck's The Accountant 2 for second place at the box office charts. Revenge of the Sith, which Disney is re-releasing for the space opera prequel's 20th anniversary, earned $25.2 million in 2,775 locations. Film collected another $17 million internationally for a galactic 42 million global tally over the weekend. That's staggering business for a movie that's been widely available to watch at home for 2 decades. Yes, the Force is still strong. That's all they dedicate to it, okay? But don't worry, because I got more data. So, this is the 5th biggest opening of a movie in Hollywood this year. This year, 5th biggest this year. 20-year-old movie. Biggest opening this year was Minecraft, 162 million domestic, 300 global, I believe. Captain America, Brave New World is next up after that. Then you have Sinners, I believe, at 63 million. Dogman, which I don't even know what Dogman is. I think it's like an animated thing. 36 million domestic. I don't remember what it did global. But then you have Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3. So the 5th biggest opening of the year in Hollywood is a 20-year-old George Lucas Star Wars movie, okay? Now, what that does to the overall gross is kind of interesting, too. Before this weekend, the worldwide gross for this movie was $850 million. So it is now at $892 million. You know, putting it above a lot of other films and kind of like etching the legacy of this film just a little bit more permanently into the zeitgeist. It's now the 43rd highest ranking all-time domestic grosser. This did some serious business, man, and I think it's incredible, you know. So that's a big story. What does that mean for Star Wars overall? Well, you know, I think it goes back to the Andor conversation. You know, I really do, and I'm not to make it all about Andor, but again, I think it's a pretty stark comparison when you have like, you know, a new version of Star Wars, this like sophisticated version, and then you have like literally the antithesis to that. I mean, Sith isn't just not like Andor. Sith is unlike a lot of shit. It is unabashedly space opera. It is totally and completely, in my mind, George's full vision, for what Star Wars should be. It's the last movie George ever made in the franchise. I think it is obviously the best of the prequel trilogy, but it is a prequel movie, and it's like, it is absolutely and deliberately in an antithesis to what Andor is, to what a lot of other science fiction is. And I think that's like undeniable. So it's very wild that that movie would make that much money, break those records, have as many fans talking about it, being positive about it as it has. And I think this bodes well for Star Wars. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting here is, as I've been reporting for the past couple of weeks, there is a fight for the identity and the future of Star Wars going on right now. And Kathleen Kennedy, you know, will she, won't she? When's she going? Is it August? Is it not August? Is it by the end of the year or whatnot? You know, she's trying to shove a lot of movies and things that represent her vision for what Star Wars should be into production very quickly. That is why the Sean Levy movie is being streamlined. You know, it's going, they're making it really, really fast. A lot of people saying no. They're rolling cameras by the end of the year, you know, like they're moving fast. They're trying to get these Simon Kinberg movies. They're trying to do a lot of stuff, right? So there's like at a time right now where that is a possible future for Star Wars. And yet, Dave Filoni, the sort of protege of George, right, is out there making Ahsoka 2 with Anakin, with Hayden. That's Dave. Like, that's Dave's idea. And by the way, shit's going to get real weird in Ahsoka. I'm not trying to, go into spoilers here. You can watch the video I did or, some of the breakdowns about the scoops that I had for it. But that shit's going to get pretty weird, and pretty crazy. What I can say is that you're getting more Anakin than you think. In that show, possibly in Dave's movie. And so you have a fight, debate, difference of vision for what the future of Star Wars is. To me, the success of the Revenge of the Sith re-release, the love that the fandom still has for Hayden Christensen, is a pretty compelling argument that vision for Star Wars, Dave's future stories, is the way to go. Now, here's what's ironic about it. We don't believe that Kathy makes good fucking decisions. So the evidence is there. I think the only hope we have is that like somebody other than her or her camp or whatever sees what's going on and leans into what Dave is doing, And I think the success of this movie and the love of Hayden and, him coming back in general, this bodes very well for Ahsoka too. This bodes very well for Ahsoka Season 2. Thanks for watching, and if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.